will you pray with me? Dear God of many names, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth reflect your love in our community. For we know when two or more are gathered in your name, you shall be there. Amen. Good morning, and thank you for coming on Boxing Day to church, and to all of you on the web, a special welcome. The gospel reading that we just heard concluded, and they went back home by another route. Having just gifted the Christ child, they were warned in a dream, and they went home a new way. I love that image. The concept and the possibilities of going home a new way. You see, Christmas Day has just passed, and so many of us have either come home or traveled home for the season. For many, Christmas folds in that tradition of coming home and the exchange of gifts among friends and family. We've developed these Christmas traditions around a central Christian story, the birth of Jesus, the Christ child. And there's a wide range of beliefs around this story. And as you know, here at MCC Toronto, it is the diversity of beliefs that we believe is in fact a welcome blessing. A fundamental tenement to Christianity in its many forms is the belief that God became human in the birth of Jesus. And the story also tells us that on this night, the Magi, following the Star of Bethlehem, arrived at this manger to present gifts to the new king, and they left changed. They went home a new way. It is customary during the Christmas season to give gifts, and consequently to receive gifts. You see, there's that two parts to gifting. For the nature of gifting to be what I think we might all call successful, a gift not only has to be given, but a gift has to be received. And it's for so many of us that this is the reason we angst over getting the perfect gift, and perhaps the very reason that Diane offers up concert tickets so we can indeed have the perfect gift. I remember as a young boy, my father explaining to me, "Nah, son, good Christmas present for your mother isn't a vacuum cleaner." And as we grow older, we learn what is considered the good gift, and so too how to receive or how not to receive gifts. And so I want to take a minute this morning to take a look at some of these customs and beliefs on Boxing Day. So if I decided today that I wanted to give Diane a beautiful rainbow boa, I'd have to head down to Church Street and purchase one. Well, actually, as I look among this congregation, it's probably somebody's got one stuffed in their handbag somewhere that I could have. But the fact is, I'm going to have to need or have a boa to be able to give Diane a boa. See, I can't give that which I don't have. So the very act of my giving something away causes me to experience that I must have it in the first place to be able to give it. So if I am going to offer love, friendship, or compassion, I must possess it myself. And since love and compassion aren't tangible like a boa, they must be in me, ergo they must be of me. The gift of giving love includes the realization that you must be love, and you must be compassion, or you could not give it. And if you must be this thing, then you can choose to be this thing called love as often as you decide that this is how you choose to show up in the world, or how you choose to be who you are, as the reading referred this morning. And for those of you who know me, you'll know that I frequently use that expression, who you are or who you choose to be, as a way of recognizing that we have a free will, a gift from God of free will that allows us to make these choices. Now, others don't always perceive us showing up in the world the way we think we do. And we don't always behave or show up in the world maybe the way we'd like to. I mean, frequently in retrospect, I think we've all said, "Oh, I can't believe I said that," or "I can't believe I did that." And in fact, retrospect is available in the present moment, but that's a sermon for another time. So gifts come in many forms, not just as the gold, frankincense, myrrh, or a vacuum cleaner. We heard today in our reading, God says, when someone enters your life unexpectedly, Look for the gift that person has come to receive from you. I tell you this, every person who has ever come to you has come to receive a gift from you. And in doing so, he or she gives a gift to you, the gift of your experiencing and fulfilling who you are. So I want to share with you a personal story. Some years ago, I accepted a contract to develop a yacht management division for a small company in Fort Lauderdale. It was a privately owned company, and we all worked at a small office which had glass doors on all of the offices. We could all see each other. And the owner of this company was a man of my age. He was very short in stature, and he was very high energy. And what felt like this top dog's sole method of communication was this apparent, non-ending stream of abusive epithets that he'd just deliver at a rapid pace, nonstop, and at a very high volume. And he'd scamper about the office in circles and poking his head into each glass office just long enough to deliver his rampage. And more often than not, I felt like I was trapped in a glass pen with a rabid chihuahua that had drank way too much espresso. And it was really difficult not to get drawn into this man's histrionics. And after a few weeks, I realized that I was indeed getting sucked into that vortex of drama. Going to work became very unsettling. And I quickly realized that I had to find a way to remain centered in the midst of all of this chaos. Now, the British, they have a wonderful saying that I really love to describe a temper tantrum. He threw all of his toys out of the pram, or playpen, as it were. Over the following weeks, each time I would see him starting to toss the toys out of the pram, I would politely excuse myself, I'd close my office door behind me, turn my back, and I would say a little prayer. Dear God, give me understanding, give me compassion, give me patience. And I'd go back out, and I was able to engage this fellow. And this strategy, it actually worked for a number of weeks. However, there came a day, a couple of weeks into this, where my attempt to excuse myself only exacerbated his behavior. And no longer were toys being tossed out of that playpen, but I saw the whole playpen starting to come in my direction. And he comes barreling at me. Where are you going? Every time I try and talk to you, you turn your back, you walk into your office. How am I ever going to be able to talk to you if you just don't listen to me? His questions were always rhetorical, so I just stood there calmly looking at him, and, aren't you going to answer me? He screamed at me. You know, it's strange. He never actually seemed to inhale during these events. So I stood there, and I waited patiently for a bit of an opening. I said, well, yes, sir, if you'd like to hear what I have to say, I'd be honored to tell you. And the fact is, honestly, I just don't know how to deal with you screaming at me. So I go into my office and I pray for compassion, patience, and understanding. Well, by this time, all eyes were on us in the office, and for the first time in weeks, I think this guy had no reply. And he just stood there looking up at me with this beet red little face, and he finally looks at me and goes, you pray? You have to pray to talk to me? Yes, sir, I said. I just don't know how to cope with the yelling. And he turned and he quietly walked off into his office. Now, I don't think ultimately that leopard ever truly changed his spots, but I can tell you that the remainder of my contract in the office was a little more placid. You know, I've been really excited about that job, and to be really honest with you, in the first few weeks of dealing with this, I go home to my friends and rant about this nutcase that I had to work for, all of this drama that was going on. I was convinced the problem was his, that I was being forced to deal with this burden over my life, and I had no control over it, and the only reason I was there was the paycheck. But it was the result of praying for compassion, patience, and understanding that I finally developed enough awareness to ask the question, what gifts do we bring to each other? What gifts do we bring to each other? And it it was then that I realized that this man had brought me the gift of recognizing my ability to be the person and the man who I chose to be. And I was able to gift him with the opportunity to witness my learning of the experience of who I am. I experienced my wanting to be compassionate, a voice of reason, a pastoral presence amidst this chaos. And in my wanting, I was able to become and to choose who I am. You see, if we choose to be open to the Spirit, when we give and both receive with an open heart, we are truly blessed. Now, I know that most of us at one time or another have had to engage one of these people that live from such deep fear, and they can be manipulative, and they can be controlling, and they can be loud, or they can engage you with that kind of sweet, passive-aggressive behavior. And most often, these people who push our buttons so deeply are the ones that bring us the biggest gift. Now, I'll grant you, these are gifts that are pretty messily wrapped up. And they might not even be ready or willing or able to choose who they are at this time. But when we ask ourselves what gifts they may bring to us and what gifts we may offer them, God provides a compassionate answer. And it isn't uncommon that these gifts are very messily wrapped. However, the flip side is that the more often they are prettily wrapped, we are very quick to minimize them. When a friend picks up your dinner tab, how many times have you said, "I'll get it next time, thanks"? Or upon the receipt of a gift said, "Oh, you shouldn't have." Platitudes such as this minimize the gift. Choose to fully and heartfully accept gifts that you may in turn gift the giver with your appreciation. If we choose to live from a place where we believe that we are all angels bearing gifts, it becomes a lot easier to look past that messy gift wrapping and to discover the gift within. The gift that I received in Fort Lauderdale changed me. I can tell you I honestly thanked this gentleman when I left his employ for the experience of being with him. You see, I was able to leave there like the wise men, changed. And I came home a new way. And I came home a new way here to MCC Toronto to do my internship. I'd lived here for years, from my late teens to mid-30s, before I walked from the AIDS crisis for a life at sea. And part of the training to become a captain was to learn to navigate by the stars. So it was somehow fitting that as a young man, I had longed, much like the Magi, to follow a star in particular. And it was a star that shone really deeply inside my soul. And I suspected that somehow I too bore these gifts for the Christ child. But I gotta tell you, the wrapping on all of that, pretty messy. And it was frightening. And it was full of dark valleys and potential cliffs from which to jump. You know, life brings us to the edge of cliffs of sorts. And sometimes our star seems to shine just on the horizon, out of reach. And there's dozens of reasons not to jump off of that cliff, and they all seem to fall into the category of fear or common sense, which is kind of a fine line and yet another sermon. You know, over the last decade, I've seen past lots of messy wrapping paper with the help of those whose paths I have crossed. As I've journeyed into my ministry, I have met many, many people who have bore gifts that I did not suspect. As I stood in those dark valleys or on the edge of those cliffs, at times I have struggled and I have failed to offer up my gifts, and two, I have minimized or failed to see the gifts that others bring. Yet when we decide to show up in our world with the knowledge that we are the gift, and others come bearing gifts, we can learn to accept the blessing of the gifts that we have within. These gifts are who we are. And they are gifts that we can manifest into this world for ourselves and for others. So my invitation to you this Christmas season, when we invest so much time and resources into gifting, that you take a moment to realize that you can only give what you have. You can only give what you are. Your love for one another, your compassion, your motivation and drive to bring joy and peace into this world. It is a reminder that indeed you are love. You are joy. You are the peace that is brought into this world. For it is said, when you see this simple truth, when you understand it, you see the greatest truth of all. I have sent you nothing